All right, so I know I can't be the only one who is absolutely fed up with using wheel lug bolts on our cars in terms of mounting our wheels to the hub. It's a pain in the butt, especially if you don't have a wheel guide to keep your wheel on there. You have to hold the wheel up with your feet while you line up lug bolts. Volkswagen Audi is one of the few manufacturers in the world that doesn't use a wheel stud system. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna install a Vargas Turbo wheel stud system onto my car. All right, everybody, welcome back to another video with Audi C7 owners. As always, I am Cameron, and I will be your guide through this DIY today. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, helps me out. But this video is sponsored today by Vargas Turbo. They sent over their wheel stud kit for us to put on the car and show you guys how to do it. So I'm gonna move the camera, get a better look at this. We'll open up the box and I'll show you what's inside. All right, let's open this up. You've got some good styrofoam packaging here. We've got a little swag pack from Vargas Turbo. Got some things in there. I spy some gummy bears, so that was very cool of them. And then after that, you've got the stud kit wrapped up here. I'm gonna move the box out of the way. And here it is. We have 20 studs and we have 20 lug nuts. So I'm gonna get these open so I can show you guys a little bit more detail on what these all look like. And we'll get to talking about what else you need to complete this job. All right, so I just opened up one set of the studs and nuts here. And as you can see, we've got our stud. I have this at a specific length for my setup, and that's what you need to know. If you're gonna do this conversion, make sure you get a length that works for your setup. So if you run wheel spacers, anything like that, you need to take that into account. But you've got this short threaded end, and then you have the long threaded end. The short threaded end is what's going to be going into the hub of your vehicle. And then on the other end, that's what you're going to put your wheel over, and then your lug nut will tighten down over top of that. As you can see here on the end, we've got a 6mm hex opening. That's what we're going to use to torque these into the hub with. So given that, we're going to need a 6mm hex key. However you want, whatever you want to use. We're going to be torquing it, so I suggest you get like a 6mm hex socket like this, torque wrench. And then you also need some stuff for cleaning. We want to make sure we clean the lug bolt holes out really well, because if there's any seeds in there or anything like that, it won't allow this to tighten up and mate to the hub correctly, and it could potentially work its way out. So I've got some brake cleaner, I've got some degreaser, and then I also picked up this bore brush kit from Harbor Freight. This was like $7, and it comes with a bunch of different diameter brushes that I'm going to use to clean out the inside of the lug bolt holes on our hub. And then lastly, if you want to get a little wire wheel that you can attach to your impact or to your drill, this is good to clean up the mating surface where your wheel is going to sit flush up against your hub. This is a good time to clean all that off. So I've got one of these too. I've already used it to clean up everything, but just wanted to point that out. And then the last bit of all this, you need some blue Loctite, because you don't want these studs to work themselves out of your hub. So make sure you have blue Loctite for those. All right, so the first thing we want to do is clean the inside of these lug bolt holes, because I can see a little bit of metal in there. There's obviously going to be some dirt and debris if anybody uses anti-seize. We don't want any of that in there on the threads. The threads do look pretty shiny and clean, but I'm still going to spray each one of them with a little bit of degreaser. And then, like I said, I got this bore brush kit from Harbor Freight, and I can take this and I can just go in and out here. If I want to turbo this, and that sound you're hitting on the back is this going through the hub and hitting the dust shield. But brass is light on metal. It's not going to damage anything. I don't want to, mess up the threads at all. But if I want to speed this up, I took the smaller brush, I cut it, put it in my drill. And I can really get it in here and make easy work of cleaning this. Okay, so if there's anything large or anything stuck in there, that would break that up. So now I can go in here with this larger brush and I can really pull any of that stuff out. What we basically want to do is just get this stuff, anything that might be in there, get it loosened up, because what we're going to do after we scrub it is we're going to use the brake cleaner to flush it all out. All right, so did all that. Now I'm going to hit with the brake clean. And now we have to wait for that to dry. If you want to speed the drying process up, you can get compressed air and blow this out. But we're going to let that dry. All of the threads should be nice and clean. You can take a flashlight and look in there and verify, make sure that it's good and clean and nothing standing, or nothing out of order. Make sure there's no gummed up, dirt, whatever in there. But we're going to let that dry, and I'm going to go and do this on every other wheel. That way we can go ahead and start to install the actual stud kit. Okay, so I'm actually using the packaging, like the protective packaging that the stud kit came in as a little tray. It works really well. But now it's time, this has been completely clean, completely dried. Now it's time to actually put the studs in. I've got my blue Loctite. Gonna put just a little bit on here. And then thread it in by hand. I'm gonna do this for all of the studs before we torque them down. All right, so these are all hand tightened, so I'm gonna go ahead and torque them down. I've got my torque wrench set to 12 foot-pounds. It doesn't take a ton. Got the blue Loctite in there, so let's go ahead and get them torqued down. And I'm gonna go ahead and get these all done, and then we'll be ready to put the wheel on. All right, as you can see, we've got all the studs onto the hub. Everything is nice and tight. So now I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit while I do the other wheels, and then we will do the other hubs, and then we will get the wheels put on the car. Okay, once you've gotten your stud kit fully torqued down and it's had a little bit of time to set, take whatever wheel spacers you want to put on, go ahead and get those all the way on, and then you can put your wheel on. And it's so much easier than dealing with lugs, actual lug bolts. So make sure you put on your lug nuts the correct way. And these are 19 millimeter. And then you're going to torque these down just as you would any of your normal OEM lug bolts. We're gonna go to 90 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all those done, and we will talk about the pros and cons of using a stud kit next. All right, guys, let's talk about some questions you might have about why I installed a wheel stud kit onto my car. What are the advantages of a wheel stud kit versus having wheel bolts that just go directly into your wheel hub? So first, let's talk about advantages of wheel bolts, because there's not a ton. Across the world, most car manufacturers make their cars with wheel stud kits. It's only the German car world that typically uses wheel bolts. And the main reason for that is that it's going to be a lot cheaper for them to manufacture and produce them for their vehicles. Volkswagen and Audi pretty much uses the exact same length wheel bolts for all of their models. There might be a couple variations here and there, but for the most part, they're all the same length. So that makes it very cost effective for them. If they had to run wheel studs and lug nuts, they might have to have different variations for different cars. So that is a big advantage. Another small advantage, and this is really stretching it, is that wheel bolts typically will come in a little bit lighter compared to wheel studs and lug nuts, but that's marginal. No one's gonna notice that in any kind of rotating mass situation. So that's about the only advantage that I can think of about running wheel bolts. If you guys have another one, leave them in the comments below so that I can talk about it in maybe another video. Let's go to advantage of wheel studs with lug nuts. First off, the main one that everyone's gonna immediately recognize is being able to put your wheel onto your car and get it situated on your hub to tighten down the lug nuts. It's a breeze. You don't have any issues with it. You just literally line up the holes, put it on, and you are tightening lug nuts and you're on the road. If you've ever not had the pleasure of putting on a wheel without any kind of a guide pin using wheel bolts, it is a nightmare, especially if you have spacers. You've got to line up the spacer with your wheel hub, then you have to line up your wheel with the spacer, make sure that stays aligned with your wheel hub. Definitely want to have some of those guide pins to aid in this. Your car should come with one plastic one. I suggest having two. But if you don't have those, you're literally sitting on the ground with the wheel on top of your feet, trying to lift it up and line it up, and then trying to start your wheel bolt without mis-threading it or cross-threading it, and it's an absolute nightmare. So the advantage definitely goes to wheel studs and lug nuts on that one. After that, this is kind of a cool one that I found out when it comes to torquing down a wheel bolt versus a lug nut. When you're torquing down a lug nut, it's basically constant threads. There's X amount of threads inside of this, so it's gonna have constant torque whatever or wherever you go and however much you put on this. It's not gonna vary. Whereas with a wheel bolt, the deeper it goes into your hub, it needs more torque to go deeper. So as it continues to go into the hub, you know, just a little bit of torque to start it, but more and more and more and more torque is required as you're going deeper. This could potentially result in stretching of your wheel bolts over time, which could, you know, result in them being misformed or, you know, deformed, or even shearing off. So that's a disadvantage to wheel bolts. Now, I will say this with wheel studs, if you get wheel studs that are too long, that could result in your wheel stud starting to bend a little bit, which could be an issue. So make sure you get the appropriately sized wheel stud for your car. Speaking of the size of your wheel stud, when you get those, you can have them and run different kind of spacers, different size spacers, without having to change the wheel studs. You know, I've got mine to accommodate my spacer setup on my car. They're not overly long, but I can change those spacer kits and it doesn't need to change the wheel stud to accommodate those. Whereas with wheel bolts, different size spacers require different size wheel bolts to go into your hub. So that gets expensive, because for us to buy these, and especially buy the longer ones, they get a little pricey. So that's another advantage to wheel studs. One of the last big advantages to having a wheel stud kit is the ability to fix them very cheaply and very easily if you do cross thread one. So if I put this on and I don't pay attention and I send it home with an impact and it's cross threaded and I just tear up the threads on the wheel stud, or I mess up the lug nut, all I need to do is buy a single replacement one and a single replacement lug nut, take out the old one, put in the new one, and I'm good to go. Whereas if you cross thread a wheel bolt and it damages the threads of your hub, you are in for a very long and expensive fix. You're gonna have to replace your hub, and that's not cheap. It's not easy if you do it at home. So that is a huge advantage to a wheel stud kit. So I'm really excited to have these on my car. Obviously, if I have any issues with this kit going forward, I will keep you guys updated. I want to give another big shout out to Vargas Turbo for supplying the channel with their wheel stud kit. It went in super easy. If you guys do this job, I'm talking like the cleaning and like the proper prep and installing, it should take you less than an hour, maybe like 45 minutes to do all 4 of your wheels. It's that simple to get in there. Just make sure you do that prep work to make sure all your hub, wheel, you know, guide holes or whatever you want to call them, the lug holes are nice and clean, and make sure you use blue Loctite and torque those down appropriately. If you guys have any questions on this kit, any questions about the reliability or anything like that, leave them in the comments below. Let me know what you think. If you're running a stud kit, let me know how it's worked out for you. I do know of someone with 1C7 who's had issues with a stud kit, but I know another guy that's running them on his C7 has been running for a year and has had no issues with them. So yeah. Let me know what you think. If you found this video helpful and informative, like it, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the next video. See you guys on the next one.